prophetic artists, and welcome to Prophetic Art Mastery Week 5 Training 1. And today's training is going to be completely through stories. I have two stories I'm going to share with you, one kind of long, one short, and your play work today will be to write down the key takeaways that you personally are going to take away from these stories. I also want you to have the time to watch the video I sent you. It's a rare opportunity to watch a man paint who is both a friend and a mentor of mine. And I'm going to share a story about him. He will be the second story. Story number one begins when I had been painting probably 4 to 5 years. Okay. I had no formal training still at this point. Well, I've never had formal training ever yet. But I had taken a couple of workshops where I had learned to do a specific painting from this woman artist. Now, at this point, I was reading a book by a man named Bill Herring, and it was a fascinating book. At the very beginning of the book, he had written a dedication to Jesus Christ, which was a huge surprise to me. But it was in this book that I first learned that Hitler had an art degree. That's where I learned that. And this man's artwork was completely different than any artwork I'd seen before. But anyway, the whole book fascinated me. And on a whim one night, I looked him up on the internet and found out that in a couple weeks, he was going to be teaching a workshop in Eastern Oregon, which was about a 10-hour drive, I would say, from where I lived on the coast. And I was so excited. So I called right away to see if I could get into that workshop. It was a week-long workshop. And the woman said, "Oh my, no." She said, "His workshops are full. He has 35 to 50 people who take his workshops." It was still absolutely full and had been full for 9 months. She said, "I could put you on the waiting list though." And of course, 2 weeks go by and I'm certain I'm not going to be able to attend this workshop. However, at 9 p.m., the night before the workshop is about to start, I get a phone call from this woman. And she said, "There's a long waiting list ahead of you. However, you are the nearest person. We've had a cancellation tonight. And if you can get here by 9 or 10 in the morning, you can have her spot." This is at 9 p.m. and I have a 10-hour drive. I find people to watch my dogs. I don't know what to take, so I throw in all my oil paints and a couple canvases and an easel because I don't know what to take, and pack all my clothes in a big fat hurry and jump in the car in the wee hours of the night, and I drive 10 hours. Now, I don't arrive there by 10. I don't get there till 11. And of course, he's got 35 some people there, and he's got these long tables full of art supplies, and you can see his art on the walls behind him. It's a huge room, and I'm trying to sneak in, except that you can't miss me because I'm coming in a door that's right behind him. And I had to sneak around him, trying not to be interruptive, but there I am. And I go to the back of the room and I sit down. He's in lecture mode and he's explaining how the schedule's going to work at this point. His schedule, oh, I forgot to set my timer. His schedule is that in the mornings he will be doing lectures. In the afternoons, we will be painting. During the afternoons, you will be able to sign up for a one-on-one session with him in which you will bring your artwork and he will critique it and give you feedback. I'm devastated because I didn't know he was going to do that. I thought I was coming there to learn how to do a painting. And so I had nothing to show him. And so that was my first, oh my gosh. The second one had to do with what he shared in his lecture that morning. It was in that lecture I also learned the value of copying, because he shared with us the power of copying, how the masters had done it. In fact, he said that here's all my art supplies, and if you'd like to copy some of my art, you're welcome to do that. But your whole thing, he said, is to paint, paint, paint while you're here. And then meet with me for an interview, one-on-one critique. And he said, on the last day, toward the end, we're going to pack up everything. You're going to pack it up, put it in your cars, and we're all going to gather together in a room, and I'm going to give you a prescription. Now, I had no idea what that meant. I signed up for my interview with him toward the very end of the week so that I would have time to paint something because I hadn't brought any of my own artwork. Nothing. Not a thing. And he leaves the room and says, get painting. I've never attended a workshop where someone says, get painting. I don't know what to paint. I'm a complete blank. So I decide to take him at his word. And I'm fascinated by his artwork anyway. It's completely different. Most of his artwork was pastels on paper. So I went and pulled a couple of artworks off the wall. I helped myself to his pastels and paper because he said so, and I started copying him. Now, I'm the only one in the room out of 35 people who is copying him. But I don't know what else to do. I feel like a complete blank. It was the only thing I could think of. And so the whole week goes by. I'm having a lot of fun copying his work, just having a blast. On the last day, my interview comes up, and I did about 5 of his paintings, and I pile them up, and I walk into the room, and I lay them out, and I explained to him embarrassingly that I did not know I was supposed to bring my work from home so he could critique my work, so I had nothing to show him. There was no cell phones back then. And I was sort of embarrassed. I wasn't sort of. I was very embarrassed. But I said, but this is all I have to show you. And he looks down at the artwork. I spread it out on the table there, and he's looking at it and looking at it. He's very quiet. And then he looks at me and he says, Lesniewski, sit down. And I sat down, and I felt like I was in a ton of trouble. And he asked me questions that I didn't expect, simple, obvious questions to me. And when I get through answering, he looks down at the artwork again and he says, okay, that will be it. Thank you. Lesniewski, you may go. And he's dead serious, and I'm devastated. No feedback on the work I did. No feedback on anything I said. No feedback. And he didn't seem happy. So I was just like, so I can't tell you in words how embarrassed I felt and how horrible I felt when I left that room. Well, at that point I left the room, and I was one of the last people, so I was packing up all my stuff out of shame, putting it back into my car, and then it was time for everybody to gather in the room, which I really didn't want to do, but I sat in the back of the room, and he had all 35 people gathered around, and he began sharing prescriptions. And what a prescription was is he would turn to each artist that he'd met with, and apparently had taken a few notes, and each one of them got a prescription of 1 to 3, maybe 5 things max. And they would be things like, you need to quit painting in color and just paint in black and white for about 6 months. Or you need to switch from painting in acrylics to oils. You need to get that eye surgery. I mean, he did have some really unique prescriptions. And he went through this room, and eventually he gets to me, and he says, Lesniewski. And he's really quiet, just like he was in the room. And I'm wishing I'm not even in the room, to tell you the truth. And he goes, you need to have a pad of paper and a pencil and write this down. So somebody hands me a pad because I had packed all my stuff up, and he says, I have 25 things for you. 25? And the first, and I wish I could remember all 25, you guys, but I don't remember. God, I wish I could remember. But they were things like one was buy the whole Time Life series on the Art Masters and read every single one. Um, I remember another odd one was to get the Anne of Green Gables movies and watch them. But anyway, he's listing 25 things and I'm writing them down as he's saying them as fast as I can. I'm not even looking up because I'm so focused writing them down. And at the very end, he says, and if you are willing, I would like to mentor you. And I don't really hear that, to be honest with you, because I'm writing my 25 things. And I do write, and he will mentor me. And it didn't go into my brain. I tear off the piece of paper and I hand it to the artist next to me. And I don't respond. I don't say anything at all. And he calls the next person's name and starts to give them a prescription. So I'm thinking, I'm out of here. I better go because I have 10 hours to drive and this is at 6 p.m., right? And so I walk out trying to be very quiet out to my car. And I'm almost to the car when another artist who was in the room comes running out. He's going, Lesniewski. And I went, what? He goes, what are you doing? And I say, I'm going home. And he goes, hello, Lesniewski. There are 34 people in there jealous because Bill Herring just said he would mentor you. And you get up and walk out the door? What are you doing? I mean, you could at least say, yes, please, thank you. And I'm like, I'm embarrassed. I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I don't know what to do. And of course, this guy's going back in because he doesn't want to miss the thing. And I'm sitting in my car freaking out. I don't know what to do. So I do the stupidest thing imaginable. And I drive off. I'm too embarrassed to go back in. And of course, I have the next 10 hours to think about everything he had just said and his offer to mentor me. Oh, and one of those things, 25 things, was an invitation to come to his next workshop that would be held in Albuquerque, New Mexico, or Taos, I don't remember. And that he would really like me to be there and he would make it free for me. But I drive 10 hours without, okay, thank you. And I get home and I spend the whole next week freaking out about what had happened and freaking out that I never even said a word to him. And what should I do? And I finally get the courage to call the workshop woman and say, can you give me Bill Herring's phone number? And she says yes, which I didn't expect. And I call Bill Herring and I say, hello, Bill, this is Lynn. And I don't hear anything for a few minutes. And then I hear a burst of laughter. And he goes, I've been waiting to hear from you, Lesniewski. And that was how I got my first painting mentor. We worked long distance primarily for 2 years, and it was mostly letter writing. It was an amazing, amazing 2 years. And he was the one who helped me shift out of beginner mode into believing that I had something to offer the world. Now, my second story has to do with the video that you are going to watch today, Kevin McPherson. And I met Kevin on a trip to Europe. Where I got to, I think it was in 2005, travel with a group of artists. Now, I didn't know Kevin McPherson from anybody, so when we all got together, I didn't know who he was. Apparently, everybody else did. And he informed the whole group that he was not there to teach or to be bothered and to leave him alone. Well, then I talked to the other artist and I find out he's like this big famous artist and his work sells for thousands and thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I'm like, well, bummer, I want to watch him paint. And so I sneak up behind him. Now everybody else scatters because, man, they're going to respect him and honor him, and they don't want to offend him. And I don't want to offend him, but I want to see what he does, right? So I would always pretend that I just happened to want to paint the same thing he was looking at. So I'd keep my distance, 6 to 10 feet away, and I'd be very, very quiet, and I'd pretend to be painting over here, but I'd be actually watching him very intently as much as I could. And I remember watching him put strokes of color on his canvas and thinking, that color wasn't there. And I'd look, and sure enough, it was there. And that happened so many times, I couldn't believe it, where he would put down a stroke of a color of a value that I did not see, and I would have to go look at the real life thing and study it, and then I would begin to see it. And it was from watching him that I learned color. Not a word was ever spoken during all that time. Now, at the end of that trip with him, he came up to me, and I have to tell you this story. He came up to me one evening after a day of painting. He had hardly talked to me at all during the whole trip. And I wondered if I was offending him, but at that point I didn't care because I was learning so much, right? And he came up to me and he said, it has not been lost on me that you've been watching me. And I said, yeah, I'm so sorry. I've tried to be really quiet. And he goes, you've done an excellent job. He goes, I think you're one of the smartest people in this group. He goes, if you'd like, I'm going to go paint tonight at 10 p.m. and do a moonlight scene, and you are welcome to come with me. I was like, oh my God. I was so tired. I remember I was so tired that the last thing I wanted to do at 10 p.m. was go out and paint. But I went with him, and he told me, no, you have to paint. You can't just watch. And he did tell me that one of the things he really appreciated about me was that I watched, which is visual learning, and that I also painted, that I didn't just sit there and watch, but I always painted every single time. That night, watching him paint a night scene in moonlight was one of the most fascinating things I've ever seen. So you're going to meet Kevin in the video I've shared with you from YouTube. I'd love it if you'd comment and let him know I sent you. And of course, he's super advanced. You guys do not expect to be able to paint like he is. Just learn what you are meant to learn from this video, okay? Thank you guys very much for listening to my stories. Please share with me what you got from these stories in the comments below this post, and I will see you on Wednesday. Bye-bye.